यदा तद्विकारो भवेत् तदा नेत्रादौ जलादिकं भवति इत्यर्थः. When the heart is transformed, then there are tears in the eyes and so on. This will be reinforced in the 10th canto by the king himself. तदेवं श्री शुकवाक्य आरंभ अध्याय एव अभिधेयत्वेन श्री भक्तिरेव लब्धा. So in this manner, from the first chapter that contains the beginning of Shukadeva Goswami's statement, Sri Bhakti, meaning the sacred process of Bhakti Yoga, itself has been presented as the Abhideya, the primary teaching. And the commentary also notes this. This is Sridhar Swami's introduction to this canto, in which he says in the first chapter, dharana of the mind on the gross form of the Supreme Lord through Shravanam and through Kirtanam, Shravanam, etc. is brought out in the second chapter. When the mind is conquered through gross dharana, then one should engage in dharana on Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Lord and the witness of all. Then the third chapter talks about the respect for the activities of bhakti. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary is important. Tadevam vyasta samastataya bahyam angam pradhanyena ninditva abhyantaramapi nindati. So, in this way, having individually criticized mostly all of the external bodily limbs or not engaging in Krishna Bhakti, now he criticizes the internal sense also when it is not engaged in Krishna Bhakti. Tadashvasaram lohamayam eva hridayam. That heart is steel framed. It is made out of iron. Yat khalu grihyamanaihi ketyamanaihi api bahuvihi harinamadheyihi na utriyeta. Which does not transform even after chanting the holy name of Lord Hari several times. And the characteristic of that transformation is brought out here. Acha yada vikaro netre jalam gataruheshu harshaha. Gataruheshu romasu harshaha romanchaha. Standing of the hairs on end. Bahunama grahane api chittadrava bhavaha nama aparathalingam iti sandarbhaha. From the sandarbha of Jiva Goswami, it is understood that even after a lot of chanting of the holy name, if the heart does not melt, then this is an indication of the presence of namaparad. Kimcha ashrupulakau eva chittadravalingam ityapi na shakyate vaktum. Moreover, it is not possible to say that the tears in the eyes and standing of the hairs on end alone are the symptoms to indicate the melting of the heart. Yaduktam Srimat Rupa Goswami Charanai. Because the Rupa Goswami Charana I stated, Nisarga Pichila Swante that the Bhyasa Pare Picha Satvabhasam Vinapi Syu Kwapi Ashru Pulakadeha. This is Bhaktira Samrita Sindhu, in which he notes, I don't think it is 2.3.89, I think it is 1.3.89. No, it may be two, it may be two. Sometimes we notice tears in the eyes, standing of the hairs, and amongst those who have naturally a contaminated heart, or those who are practicing the exhibition of such symptoms. So even without a resemblance of purification of heart, these things are seen. तथा अतिगंभीर महानुभाव भक्तेषु हरिनाम चित्तद्रवेपि बहिर् अश्रुपुलकादयः न दृश्यन्ते इति. Besides this, amongst greatly experienced devotees who are extremely grave, even though their hearts are melting within by the chanting of Lord Hari's holy names, externally, tears in the eyes and the ecstatic standing of the hairs on end are not seen. Tasmat idam padyam idameva vyakhayam. Therefore, this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam should be explained in the following manner. Yad hridayam na vikriyeta. Ada yada vikaras tadapi ityarthaha. Despite the transformation, vikare eva, what kind of transformation? Tatraha netre jalamiti. The transformation is tears in the eyes. Tatascha bahir ashru pulakayo sato api yad hridayam na vikriyeta tadashmasaram iti vakyarthaha. So externally, even though there are tears in the eyes and the standing of the hair on end, if one's heart does not transform within, then that heart is made out of steel. This is the meaning of this statement. So the idea is this. Externally, one may have tears in the eyes, or his hairs may stand on end. But internally, if his heart is not transformed, then the heart should be understood to be steel framed. So what is the meaning of the heart melting or the heart transformation? Heart should be transformed. That he takes up now. Tatascha hridaya vikriya lakshanani asadharanani shanti nama grahana satyadini eva gyayani. The identifiable characteristics of the internal transformation of the heart are unique to persons who possess shanti. Shanti means detachment, no, patience, or forbearance, attraction to chanting the holy names, and so on. So in other words, if one possesses these unique symptoms of forbearance, attraction to the chanting of the holy name, you don't know. Now these symptoms, they are unique to a person who has attained Bhava Bhakti, at least. So it should be understood that these are the symptoms that identify which person's heart has been actually transformed. Yaduktam, as stated, Chantaravyarthakalatvam, Viraktirmana Shunyata, Ashavanda Samutkantha, Namagane, Sadaruchi, Asaktistat Gunakhyane, Pritistat Vasatistale, Ityadayo no Bhavasya, Jata Bhavankure Jane. The characteristics of a person who's actually developed is ecstatic love for Krishna. That means Bhava Bhakti. He's always anxious to utilize his time in the devotion service of the Lord. He does not like to be idle. He wants service always, 24 hours a day without deviation. This is Avyartha Kalatva. He's always reserved and perseverant. This is Shanti. It's always detached from all material attraction, Virakti. He does not long for any material respect and return for his activities. Manashunyata. He's always certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him. Ashabandha. He's always very eager to serve the Lord faithfully. Samatkantha. He's very much attached to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Namagani Sadaruchi. He's always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Asaktas Tadgunakhyane. He's very pleased to live in a place where the Lord's pastimes are performed. For example, Mathura, Vrindavan, or Dwaraka. Preetistat Vasati Sthale. So, like this, there are consequent features of a person in whom the seed of Bhava Bhakti has arisen. Ashrupulakadini tu sadharanani eva. Tears in the eyes, standing of the hairs on end, they are common to all, or they can be readily found everywhere. Whether a person has attained Bhava Bhakti or he has not attained Bhava Bhakti. But these ones are asadharan, unique. Ayam artha. This is the point. Uttama adhikarinam nirmatsaranam namagrahane sati eva nama madhurya anubhavasya. Amongst uttamadhikaris who are free from jealousy, envy, as soon as they chant the holy name, there is experience of the sweetness of the holy name. Satyam, Chatasyam, Tad Vyanjakaha, Chantyadayah, Ashrupulakadayascha, Bhavanti. And when that happens, then Shanti and so on, these symptoms of Bhava Bhakti, as well as tears in the eyes, standing of hair on end, all of them appear and reveal his true nature. Kanishtadhikarinam samatsaranam tu sa parathachitatva namagrahana vahulyepi tad madhurya anubhava abhave chittaiva vikriyeta. But for Kanishtadhikaris who are filled with envy, because their hearts are filled with paradha, despite a lot of chanting of the holy names, because of the absence of the experience of the sweetness of the holy name, the heart certainly does not transform. Tad vyanjakaha chantyadayaha api na bhavanti. And the symptoms of the transformation of the heart, such as shanti, forbearance, and so on, they are also not there. Teshameva ashru pulakadi matvepi ashmasara hridayataya nindaesha. And when such persons exhibit tears in the eyes, standing of the hairs on the end, and so on, then their hearts are nothing but steel. So in this way, this is a criticism. Kimcha, moreover, Yeshamapi sadhu sangena anarthanivritti nishtharuchi adi bhumika arudhanam alena chittadrave sati chittasya ashmasaratvam apagacchatyeva. Amongst these people also, through sadhu sangha, when they pass through the stages of anarthanivritti, nishtharuchi and so on, over time, when their hearts are transformed, then the nature of the heart as being steel framed will go away. Yesham tu chitta drave sati chittasya ashma sarata tishtedeva te tu dushchikitsya eva geya. But those whose hearts are steel framed, despite the transformation of the heart, they cannot be cured at all. तथा च वक्ष्यते तृतीये सबीजे योग ध्याने. This will be noted in the third canto. And he explains that. We will come to that later on, so I will not take up this. Okay, there's a question here. Achyutanam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhuji, in NOD's chapter 18, which you showed, second point was such a devotee is reserved and persevering. So reserved means in what sense reserved?
Reserved is, first of all these symptoms will be further explained in that very chapter. This list also appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It also appears in teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Examine all of them.
Okay. And Prabhu,
materially reserved.
Srila Rupa Goswami gives reference also that how he is deriving these 9 symptoms from where he got
Yeah,
them.
of course. We see that. They are also discussed in Bhakti Sandarbha, Preeti Sandarbha, with reference to Bhagavatam itself.
Okay.
Okay. We should note with profit that in the first 3 chapters of the second canto, a gradual process of development of devotion service is being presented. In the first chapter, the first step in devotion service for God consciousness by the process of hearing and chanting has been stressed. And a gross conception of the personality of Godhead in its universal form for the beginners is recommended. By such a gross conception of God through the material manifestations of his energy, one is enabled to spiritualize the mind and the senses and gradually concentrate the mind upon Lord Vishnu, the Supreme, who is present as a super soul in every heart and everywhere, in every atom of the material universe. The system of Pancha Upasana, recommending 5 mental attitudes for the common man, is also enacted for this purpose, namely gradual development, worship of the superior, that may be in the form of fire, electricity, the sun, mass of living beings, Lord Shiva, and at last the impersonal super soul, the partial representation of Lord Vishnu. They are all nicely described in the second chapter. But in the third chapter, further development is prescribed. After one has actually reached the stage of Vishnu worship or pure devotion service, and the mature stage of Vishnu worship is suggested herein in relation to the change of heart. The whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being in the matter of his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord as subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So with the progress of devotion service, the reaction of change in the heart is exhibited by gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment, by a false sense of lording it over the world, and an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service to the Lord. Vidhi Bhakti or regulated devotion service by the limbs of the body, namely the eyes, The ears, the nose, the hands, and the legs, as already explained herein before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind, which is the impetus for all activities of the limbs of the body. It is expected by all means that by discharging a regulated devotion service, one must manifest the change of heart. If there is no such change, the heart must be considered steel framed, for it is not melted even when there is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of devotion, of discharging devotional duties. And if they are properly performed, there will follow the reactional ecstasy with signs of tears in the eyes and standing of the hairs on the body. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfection stage of prema, love of Godhead. If the reaction does not take place, even after continuous hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord, it may be considered to be due to offenses only. That is the opinion of the Sandarbha. In the beginning of chanting of the holy name of the Lord, if the devotee has not been very careful about avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses at the feet of the holy name, certainly the reaction of feelings of separation will not be visible by tears in the eyes and standing of the hair on end. The bhava stage is manifested by 8 transcendental symptoms, namely inertness, perspiration, standing of hairs on end, failing of the voice, trembling, paleness of the body, tears in the eyes, and finally trance. The Nectar of Devotion, a summary study of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, explains those symptoms and vividly describes other transcendental developments, both in steady and accelerating manifestation. So the steady manifestation refers to Sthai Bhava. Accelerating manifestations refer to Vyabhachari Bhava and so on. Other features of such transcendental experience. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has very critically discussed all these bhava displays in connection with some unscrupulous neophytes imitating the above symptoms for cheap appreciation. Not only Vishwanath Chakravarti, but also Srila Rupa Goswami has treated them very critically. Sometimes all the above 8 symptoms of ecstasy are imitated by the mundane devotees, Prakrita Sahajiyas. But the pseudo symptoms are at once detected when one sees the pseudo devotee addicted to so many forbidden things. Even though decorated with the signs of a devotee, a person addicted to smoking, drinking, or illegitimate sex with women cannot have all the above mentioned ecstatic symptoms. But it is seen that sometimes these symptoms are willfully imitated. And for this reason, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti accuses the imitators of being stone-hearted men. They are sometimes even affected by the reflection of such transcendental symptoms, yet they still do not give up the forbidden habits. Yet if they still do not give up the forbidden habits, then they are hopeless cases for transcendental realization. Reflection. There is something called bhava abhasa. It's all part of nectar devotion. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When Lord Chaitanya met Srila Ramananda Rai of Prabhu on the bank of the Godavari, the Lord developed all these symptoms. But because of the presence of some non-devotee brahmanas who were attendants of the Rai, the Lord suppressed these symptoms. So sometimes they are not visible even in the body of the first-class devotee for certain circumstantial reasons. Therefore, real steady bhava is definitely displayed in the matter of cessation of material desires, shanti, utilization of every moment in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, avyartha kalatvam, eagerness for glorifying the Lord constantly, namagani sada ruchi, attraction for living in the land of the Lord, pritastad vasati sthale, complete detachment from material happiness, virakti, and pridelessness, manashunyata. One who has developed all these transcendental qualities is really possessed of the bhava stage, as distinguished from the stone-hearted imitator or mundane devotee. The whole process can be summarized as follows. The advanced devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord in a perfectly offenseless manner and is friendly to everyone can actually relish the transcendental taste of glorifying the Lord. And the result of such realization is reflected in the cessation of all material desires, etc., as mentioned above. The neophytes, due to their being in the lower stage of devotion service, are invariably envious. So much so that they invent their own ways and means of devotion regulations without following the acharyas. As such, even if they make a show of constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, they cannot relish the transcendental taste of the holy name. Therefore, the show of tears in the eyes, trembling, perspiration, or unconsciousness, etc., is condemned. They can, however, get in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord and rectify their bad habits. Otherwise, they shall continue to be stone-hearted and unfit for any treatment. A complete progressive march on the return path home back to Godhead will depend on the instructions of the revealed scriptures directed by a realized devotee. 25. अथाभिधेह्यंगम मनोनुकूलम प्रभाषसे भागवत प्रधान यदा हवैया सकिरात्म विद्या विशारदो नृपतिम साधु पृष्ठ. Suta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please therefore explain this to us as it was spoken by the great devotee Shukadeva Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge and who spoke to Maharaj Parikshit upon being asked. Yasmat abhaktasya sarvametad vyartham. Because everything possessed by a non-devotee, one who is not a devotee of Lord Vishnu, is useless. Manasaha anukulam priyam cha brushe. And you are pleasing that which is very, you are speaking that which is very pleasing to the mind. Ataha, therefore, sadhu prishtaha, son, therefore, being nicely questioned in this manner, Vaya sakir nripatim prati yadaha tadavide. Therefore, tell us what the son of Vyasadeva spoke to the king. Atodhikam anyat kim vaktavyam asti iti bhavaha. What else is there to speak other than this that would be pleasing to us? This is the implication. Knowledge explained by the previous Acharya like Shukadeva Goswami and followed by the next like Suta Goswami is always powerful transcendental knowledge, and it is therefore penetrating and useful to all submissive students. Chapter 4, the process of creation. Next one. Suta Vacha. Vaya Sakir iti vachas. Tattvan nishchayam atmanah. Upadharya matim Krishne. Autareya satim vyadhat. Suta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, after hearing the speeches of Shukadeva Goswami, which were all about the truth of the self, applied his concentration faithfully upon Lord Krishna. Surye parikshita krishnam srishtyadi haricheshtam shukena brahma tatputra samvadena upavarnyate. In the 4th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj asks about Lord Hari's activities such as creation. And Shukadeva Goswami describes that through a conversation between Lord Brahma and Lord Brahma's son. Ragyaha prashnam kathayitum tasya praktanim sthitimaha chaturvihi. In order to describe the king's question in 4 verses, he first of all describes the king's previous state. Vayyasake shukasya iti evam bhutam atmanah tattvasya nischayah yasmat tadvacha upadharya akalayya. Tatyam Krishna eva sevya nanya iti evam bhutam. In Parikshit, even before asking this question, was very clear that Krishna alone is meant to be served, no one else. So in that way, his mind was very chaste. He had applied his chaste mind unto Lord Krishna. Sati Vyamana Krishne Yamatis Tameva Vyatha Visheshena Adhat. He specifically focused on Lord Krishna. Kama ityadina samanya akarena upadharite api visheshe tatparya avagamat Krishna iti visheshoktihi. Even though kama, sarva kama, va moksha kama, udaradi, and so on, generally presents this point It can be understood. Generally, it can be understood that Krishna is meant to be the focus. Here, it is specifically brought out because Parikshit clearly understood the import of Shukadeva Goswami's statement that one should fix oneself on Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. And therefore, Sutta Goswami notes that he fixed his chaste mind upon Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. Chaturthe tu Shukah Prokta, Srishti Leelam Parikshita, Brahman Narada Samvadena Hanatva Gurum Harim. So Shukadeva Goswami offered his obeisances unto his spiritual master, and Lord Hari. And then he spoke about the conversation between Brahma and Narada. Atmanastattvasya nishre asmat tat Krishne satyam vidyamanam Auttareya, the son of Uttara. That has a significance. Uttaraya garbhe pravishtam Krishnam tadavadhi sada smaran eva ityartha. From the time Lord Krishna had entered into the womb of Uttara, Parikshit was always remembering that Lord Krishna. Another meaning of Satim, Avyabhicharini, chaste, exclusive. The word Satim is very significant. This means existing and chaste. And both imports are perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. The whole Vedic adventure is to draw one's attention entirely onto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna without any diversion, as instructed in the Bhagavad Gita 15.15. Fortunately, Maharaj Parikshit had already been attracted to the Lord from the very beginning of his body, in the womb of his mother. In the womb of his mother, he was struck by the Brahmastra atomic bomb released by Ashwatthama. But by the grace of the Lord, he was saved from being burnt by the fiery weapon. And since then, the king continuously concentrated his mind upon Lord Krishna, which made him perfectly chaste in devotion service. So by natural sequence, he was a chaste devotee of the Lord. And when he further heard from Srila Shukadeva Goswami that one should worship the Lord only and no one else, even though full of all desires or desire less, his natural affection for Krishna was strengthened. We have already discussed these topics. To become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, two things are very much essential. Namely, having a chance to be born in the family of a devotee and having the blessings of a bona fide spiritual master. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Parikshit Maharaj had both opportunities. He was born in a family of such devotees as the Pandavas. And just to continue the dynasty of the Pandavas and show them special favor, the Lord specifically saved Maharaj Parikshit, who later on, by the arrangement of the Lord, was cursed by the boy of a Brahmana and was able to get the association of such a spiritual master as Shukadeva Goswami. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that a fortunate person, by the mercy of the spiritual master and Lord Krishna, achieves the path of devotional service. That's a question here. Yes.
Praveen, last verse. How can a person chant with concentration if he is committing offenses? The
Where does it
translation
say
of
is no? Where does he say that he was standing with concentration?
in translation it was written.
Where?
In spite of one's chanting the holy name of Lord with concentration.
One might, while he's chanting, he may be chanting with concentration, but he's not chanting constantly. He may be doing other things at other times.
But how is it possible that I can commit offenses still I can do attentive chanting?
Yeah, all kinds of stupidities happen. By practice, one may do.
Oh. And Prabhu,
Okay. Yeah.
from purport of first verse, fourth chapter, to become a
Oh,
pure devotee, two essential things are mentioned by Prabhupada. So one
This is
was,
generally, it's in general, yes. In general, yes. But there
this
are
is not,
exceptions also.
but generally means if we are not born in family of devotees means
That's okay. So we have to jump into the exception category.
by doing,
Anyway, after one attains Prema Bhakti, then he is transferred to another universe where he will be born in Krishna's manifest pastimes. But this is the general, this is in general. We also know Kirata, Punandra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, they also get the opportunity. If one surrenders to the instructions of a perfect pure devotee of Lord Krishna, that overrides this general conception, this general procedure. But for that, one has to absolutely surrender to the instructions of a perfect pure devotee. One cannot say, I'm doing my best and this and all this nonsense you can ask me. This was perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. By way of being born in a family of devotees, he automatically came in touch with Krishna. And after being so contacted, he constantly remembered him. Consequently, Lord Krishna gave the king a further chance for development in devotion service by introducing him to Shukadeva Goswami, a stalwart devotee of the Lord with perfect knowledge in self-realization. And by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master, he was perfectly able to concentrate the chaste mind further upon Lord Krishna as a matter of course. Text 2. Atmajaya Sutajar Prashudravina Bandhushu Rajye Chavi Kale Nityam Virudham Amatam Jahau. Maharaj Parikshit, as a result of his wholehearted attraction for Lord Krishna, was able to give up all deep-rooted affection for his personal body, his wife, his children, his palace, his animals like horses and elephants, his treasury house, his friends and relatives, and his undisputed kingdom. Madhvacharya has noted, Nyesham Nityam Nirudha, Tada Visheshata Jahav. These are all deep-rooted affection for others. He gave up his personal body, his wife, his children, his palace, his animals like horses and elephants, his treasury house, his friends, relatives, and his undisputed kingdom, which for others are others have deep-rooted affection for them. But he specifically gave up all of these. Not that he possessed deep-rooted affection. Atma deha pashavah gajadaya jaho yah purvameveti kiya vimarshito hai yah daya purastha. It should be understood from 1.19.5 that this he gave up this affection before, not now at this moment. To become liberated means to become free from dehatma buddhi, the illusory attachment for personal bodily coverings and everything connected with the body, namely wife, children, and all other entanglements. One selects a wife for bodily comforts, and the result is children. For wife and children, one requires a dwelling place, and as such, a residential house is also necessary. Animals like horses, elephants, cows, and dogs are all household animals, and a householder has to keep them as household paraphernalia. In the modern civilization, the horses and elephants have been replaced by cars and conveyances with considerable horsepower. To maintain all the household affairs, one has to increase the bank balance and be careful about the treasury house. And in order to display the opulence of material assets, one has to keep good relations with friends and relatives, as well as become very careful about maintaining the status quo. This is called the material civilization of material attachment. Devotion for Lord Krishna means negation of all material attachments as detailed above. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Maharaj Parikshit was awarded all material amenities and an undisputed kingdom in which to enjoy the undisturbed position of king. But by the grace of the Lord, he was able to give up all connections with material attachment. That is the position of a pure devotee. Maharaj Parikshit, due to his natural affection for Lord Krishna as a devotee of the Lord, was always executing his royal duties on behalf of the Lord. And as a responsible king of the world, he was always careful to see that the influence of Kali would not enter his kingdom. The devotee of the Lord never thinks of his household paraphernalia as his own, but surrenders everything for the service of the Lord. Thereby, living entities under a devotee's care get the opportunity for God realization by the management of a devotee master. Attachment for household paraphernalia and for Lord Krishna go poorly together. One attachment is the path of darkness, and the other attachment is the path of light. Where there is light, there is no darkness. And where there is darkness, there is no light. But an expert devotee can turn everything to the path of light by an attitude of service to the Lord. And the best example here is the Pandavas. Maharaj Yudhishthir and householders like him can turn everything to light by dovetailing so-called material assets in the service of the Lord. But one who is not trained or is unable to turn everything to the service of the Lord, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, must give up all material connections before he can be fit to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. So the point is this: Yukta Vairagya, Anasaktasya Vishayan, Yatharham Upayunjataha, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, Yuktam Vairagya Muchate, is compatible with Uttama Bhakti. But if one is unable to execute Yukta Vairagya properly, then he must actually give it up. He must just give up the sense objects. Not that he should try to deal with the sense objects, anasaktasya vishayan, with internal detachment, yatharham upayunjata, and accept only that much as is required. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, with a firm commitment uh, to relate it only with Lord Krishna and so on. There are so many terms and conditions there. If you're not able to follow all those terms and conditions, you simply give up all these sense objects. That's all. Otherwise, one will not be fit to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. In other words, one who, like Maharaj Parikshit, has seriously heard Srimad Bhagavatam for even one day from a fit personality like Shukadeva Goswami may be able to lose all affinity for material things. There is no utility simply in imitating Maharaj Parikshit and hearing Bhagavatam from professional men, even for 700 years. So this is a criticism of the caricature of Bhagavad Saptaha. To take Srimad Bhagavatam as a means of maintaining family expenditure is the grossest type of Namaparad offense at the feet of the Lord. Sarva Shubha Kriya Samyam Api Pramadaha. A householder is supposed to engage in pious activity in order to maintain himself. So he should not utilize the holy names or Srimad Bhagavatam for that purpose. Text 3 and 4. Paprakshachaimam mevartham yanmam pricchata saptama Krishnanubhava shravane shraddhadhano mahamana samstham vigyaya sanyasya karmatra vargikam chayat vasudeve bhagavati atmam bhavam dridham gataha. O great sages, the great soul Maharaj Parikshit, constantly wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna, knowing well of his imminent death, renounced all sorts of fruitive activities, namely acts of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, and thus fixed himself firmly in his natural love for Krishna and asked all these questions exactly as you are asking me. He asked all these questions about these very subjects. These very subjects means the pastimes of Lord Hari. Yan mam prichatha iti ayurharati vaipumsam ityadi vakyat vyanjitam Krishna katham bruhi iti yad prichatha. You had asked me, you had requested me, please speak about Krishna katha when you mentioned ayurharati vaipumsam. This very topic was asked by the king to Shukadeva Goswami. Dharmartha Kama Pradhanam. Renounced all sorts of fruitive activities, which are predominated by acts of dharma, artha, and kama. Sanyasya, tyaktva. He actually renounced all of them. Atma bhava. Parama premna bhagavat atmatvam gataha. He became constantly wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna. He fixed himself in his natural love for Krishna. Atmano bhavam premanameva. Dridham yatasya tathagata. He fixed himself firmly. Purva siddhamapi tada dridham gataha. That love of Krishna was previously already in him, but it became very intense. The three activities of religion, economic development, and sense gratification are generally attractive for conditioned souls struggling for existence in the material world. Such regulated activities prescribed in the Vedas are called the karmakandiya conception of life, and householders are generally recommended to follow the rules just to enjoy material prosperity both in this life and in the next. Most people are attracted by such activities, though in the modern godless civilization, people are more concerned with economic development and sense gratification without any religious sentiments. As a great emperor of the world, Maharaj Parikshit had to observe such regulations of the Vedic Karmakandiya section. Paranishtita. But by a slight association with Shukadeva Goswami, he could perfectly understand that Lord Krishna, the absolute personality of God in Vasudeva, for whom he had a natural love since his birth, is everything. And thus, he fixed his mind firmly upon him, renouncing all modes of Vedic Karma Kandiya activity. So we should note the distinction between Karma Kandiya conception of life and the adharmic conception of life. The adharmic conception of life is to just pursue artha and kama, whereas the Karma Kandiya conception of life is to pursue dharma and artha and kama. So when it says that he gave up the modes of Vedic Karma Kandi activities, it is understood that before that he had given up the modes of adharmic activities. This perfection stage is attained by a Jnani after many, many births. The Jnanis or the empiric philosophers endeavoring for liberation are thousands of times better than the fruitive workers. And out of hundreds of thousands of such Jnanis, one is liberated factually. And out of hundreds of thousands of such liberated persons, even one person is rarely found who can firmly fix his mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, as declared by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Maharaj Parikshit is specially qualified with the word Mahamanaha. Mahamanaha. Look at this word. Siddhathanaha Mahamanaha. Parikshit is full of faith. He is a great soul, Mahamanaha. So there's Mahamanaha and Mahatma. Mahatma nastu mam partha daivim prakriti mashika. Mahatma. They are the same. It is the same. Mahamana and Mahatma is the same. In the later age also, there have been many Mahatmas of this type. Mahatma means he becomes a Nirapeksha sadhaka. He becomes a Nishkinchana. And they also gave up all Karmakandi conceptions of life, solely and wholly depending on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, who is Lord Krishna himself, taught us in his Shikshashtaka, Ashlishyava Padaratam Pinashtuma Madarshanan Marmahatam Karotava, Yatha Tathava, Jhatu Lampato, Matprananath Stusa Eva Naparaha. Lord Krishna, who is the lover of many devotees, women, may embrace this fully surrendered maidservant, or may trample me with his feet, or he may render me broken-hearted by not being present before me for a long duration of time. But still, he is nothing less than the absolute Lord of my heart. Srila Rupa Goswami spoke thus: Virachaya mayi dandam, dina bandho dayam va, gatirihana bhavattha, kachidanyam avasti, nipatatu shatakotir, Nirmalam va navambhas tadapi kila payoda tuyate chatakena. O Lord of the poor, do what you like with me. Give me either mercy or punishment. But in this world, I am none to look to except your lordship. The Chataka bird always prays for the cloud, regardless of whether it showers rain or throws a thunderbolt. There's another statement like this in Padyaval. Ila Madhavendra Puri, the grand spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya, took leave of all karmakandi obligations in the following words. Sandhya vandana bhadramastu bhavato bhosnana tubhyam namo भो देवापितरश्च तर्पण विधौ नाहं क्षमः क्षम्यताम् यत्र क्वापि निषद्य यादव कुलोत्तम सस्य कंसद्विषः स्मारं स्मारमघं हरामि तदलं मन्ये किमन्येन मे. O my evening prayer, all good unto you. O my morning bath, I bid you goodbye. O demigods and forefathers, please excuse me. I am unable to perform any more offerings for your pleasure. Now I have decided to free myself from all reactions to sins simply by remembering anywhere and everywhere the great descendant of Yadu and the great enemy of Kamsa, Lord Krishna. I think that this is sufficient for me. So, what is the use of further endeavors? So, the idea is he is revealing the consciousness of a soul who has realized that if one executes bhakti, then all the benefits that you can attain from other processes prescribed in the Vedas can be achieved. The highest benefit that can come about by engaging in the activities of the Karmakanda system is purification of heart. And that purification of heart can come from devotional service unto the Supreme Lord Himself. So that is indicated by simply by remembering anywhere and everywhere the great descendant of Yadu and the great enemy of Kamsa, Lord Krishna. So this remembrance is an indication that it is a reference to all the 9 items of devotional service. Srila Madhavendra Puri said further, Mugdham mam nigadantu niti nipuna Vrantam muhur vaidika mandam bandhava sanchaya jadadhiyam muktadara sodara unmattam dhanino viveka chatura kamam mahadambhikam moktum na kshamate managapi mano govinda padas priham. The sharp moralist accuse me of being illusion. I do not mind. Experts in Vedic activities may slander me as being misled. Friends and relatives may call me frustrated. My brothers may call me a fool. The wealthy Mammonites, Mammonite is a person who always wants to become rich, may point me out as mad. And the learned philosophers may assert that I am much too proud. Still, my mind does not budge an inch from the determination to serve the lotus feet of Govinda, though I be unable to do it. Also, Prahlad Maharaj said, Dharmartha kam itiyo vihitas trivarga ikshatrayi nayadamau vividhacha varta manye tadet dakhilam nigamasya satyam swatmarpanam swasuhridah paramasya pumsa. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification are celebrated as 3 means of attaining the path of salvation. Ikshatrayi, that is, knowledge of the self, knowledge of fruitive acts and logic, and knowledge of politics and economics are different means of livelihood. All these are different subjects of Vedic education, and therefore I consider them temporary engagements. On the other hand, surrendering unto the Supreme Lord Vishnu is a factual gain in life, and I consider it the ultimate truth. This is Bhagavatam 7.6.26. The whole matter is concluded in the Bhagavad Gita 2.41 as Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, or the absolute path of perfection. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great Vaishnava scholar, defines this as Bhagavad Archana Rupaika Nishkama Karma Bhir Vishuddha Chittaha, and accepting transcendental loving service to the Lord as a prime duty free from fruitive reaction. So that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is when the heart becomes purified by engaging in various activities of dharma without any material desires, considering these activities to be different forms of indirect devotion service to the Supreme Lord, with the idea that I want to become capable of executing the primary services to the Supreme Lord. So Maharaj Parikshit was perfectly right when he firmly accepted the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, renouncing all karmakandiya conceptions of life. So now, when Baladev Vidyabhushan talks about Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, he is actually talking about a person who may be currently in the status of what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur refers to as Bhakti Mishra Nishkama Karma. But his conception is right, his goal is right. He wants to come to the point of full-fledged devotion service unto the Supreme Lord. The only difference is if he serves Parinishita devotees and then Nirapeksha devotees, through the power of that association, he will rapidly come to the point of Nirapeksha. Otherwise, if he has to go through direct experience, then he will have to experience the benefit of uh, having performed dharma, having attained various desires. He goes to Swarga. He experiences the benefits. Then he loses desire for that. Then becomes attracted to more devotion service. So then from Bhakti Mishra Nishkama Karma, it is upgraded to Nishkama Karma Mishra Bhakti. And then again, through further experience of the benefits of that combination, then gradually he comes to the point that no, I need to execute only devotion service. But he knew that way ahead of time. Only difference, he wants to progress through experience. Whereas if one decides to instead progress through the pathway of faith, then all that he will need to do is to serve the Parinishtitas and then in that way he becomes a Parinishtita. Then he serves the Nirapekshas and in that way he becomes a Nirapeksha. So the second pathway of spiritual progress is much faster within one lifetime and so on. Very fast one can progress. Whereas if one has to depend on one's own attainment of internal detachment, external renunciation, coming about through these particular combinations, it will take several lifetimes. But nevertheless, the conception is clear right from the beginning that I need to come to this point where I execute only devotion service unto the Supreme Lord. That means no adharma and sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Manmana bhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namasko. So Parikshit Maharaj had come to that point uh, when he had surrendered unto Shukadeva Goswami. Okay, so I'll stop with that. Okay, Achyutram.
Prabhuji, you said that householders should not use holy names and Bhagavatam to earn livelihood. So, any Kirtan groups which request for donations, are they like using holy name for livelihood?
They may be professionals. They may be professionals.
Like there are devotees who sometimes charge or who hint that Prabhuji, you should give some donation if we are inviting them for
So these are individual decisions that individuals should make.
So what decision we should make ideally? To have such devotees or not to have?
Giving what is required may not be wrong for householders. But if it is more than that and all that, it becomes a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna consciousness is best executed and propagated when there is no desire for money and all that. In fact, ISKCON spread so fast during Prabhupada's time because They were all working selflessly. Bhaktivinoda Thakur pointed out that the Christian missionaries are actually financed by the church for preaching. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he sent Rupa and Sanatan for preaching, he did not give them any money. He did not give them any money. On the other hand, Rupa Sanatan had to give their own money. So it's a different process. Unless one comes to the point, then I don't want kama, artha, or dharma, which will generate future kama and artha. One is not even engaged in the sattvic form of bhakti yoga. Okay, I'll stop with that. Okay. Vanshakalpatarubhyascha vachapatitaram pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaः.